Okay, you had a good attempt here, but I just need to kind of show you something on this that you probably didn't recognize. But in order to do this, you have to actually divide everything by a at the very beginning. You have to, because in order to complete the square nicely, you need to get it so there's just like a 1 in front of the x, not another term. So you divide everything by a, which lets that cancel out. And that brings us to x squared plus b over ax. And then also, I would move this to the other side by subtracting it. So I would leave us some space, and I say equals negative c over a. Okay, now we could complete the square, which is kind of what you did over here. The only difference is that it's b over a, not just b. So this is kind of like b over 2a squared, which ends up being b squared over 4a squared. So that's the value that you would add here. So you'd add b squared over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. And this would now be a perfect square, but remember, when you go to write this as a perfect square, it would be x plus, it's whatever this was before you squared it, so it would be b over 2a. And then over here, we kind of want common denominators to add this all together. So this has an a, this has a 4a squared. To get common denominators, we need to multiply by 4a on the top and bottom. And what that does is that makes this negative 4ac plus b squared all over 4a squared. And you can kind of see some parts of the quadratic formula showing up here. I'm actually going to switch the order when I write on the next line. So I'm going to say that equals b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. And this is a perfect square I'm supposed to square. Okay, now we can take the square root. So you weren't quite done where you had it. You got to get the x all by itself, so we've got to keep going. And the steps from now are just like the steps from the 3.2 lesson, I believe. And so what do we get? We would get x plus b over 2a equals, we can't really take the square root of that top, but we can take the square root of the bottom. That's nice and easy. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of a squared is a. So we end up with square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And we have to account for the fact that I know we don't know what a, b, and c are, but they represent some numbers. So really we just took the square root of the number. So we need to put a little plus or minus in front of there. And then we just subtract b over 2a from both sides. And that gives us x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, also over 2a, which is common denominator, so we could write it like this. And look at that. That's actually the quadratic formula.